If you thought Antaeus was powerful, this ancient supernatural demigod was simply on another level. Unmatched in wrestling, this master of the art used his skills solely for evil, indiscriminately slaying any man he saw pass before him. With Heracles in self-exile, who could prove worthy enough to conquer the wickedness that had beleaguered Attica and claimed the lives of so many innocents? Just outside of Athens lies a small city kingdom named Eleusis. Eleusis is perhaps best known for the Eleusinian mysteries, but it would also become the birthplace of the great tragedian Aeschylus. This townlet, at the end of the Saronic Gulf, was ruled by a man of mysterious origins. Some believed him to be the son of Poseidon, while others the son of the god of blacksmiths and fire, Hephaestus. Whichever the case, one thing is for sure: his strength could not have descended from a mortal man. His name was Kerkyon, the king of Eleusis and head of the wrestling school that carried his name, the Palestra of Kerkyon. And his wrestling was truly revolutionary for the time, as he used skills and techniques never before seen by other traditional wrestlers, namely the use of the legs for both takedowns as well as for controlling the opponent on the ground. Kerkyon would prove the efficacy of his wrestling by challenging any man passing through Eleusis to a fight, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. He defeated every opponent he faced by taking them down and using inescapable chokeholds that would further carry them to the underworld. Rumor had it that he would even rob their soulless bodies before discarding them. However, one day, when roaming the roads of Eleusis looking for a potential victim, Kerkyon saw a person that looked different. He was not like the hundreds of travelers he had slain before. No, this was no ordinary man. A god impels him so that he can bring justice down on the unjust, for it is not easy to accomplish deed after deed and not meet with evil. In the long course of time, all things come to an end. The herald says that he has an ivory-hilted sword slung over his shoulders, and a well-made Laconian hat with its fiery red hair upon his head. A royal purple tunic covers his chest, together with a woolen Thessalian cloak. He is a boy in the prime of youth, intent on the virtues of Ares, war and battles of clashing bronze. He is on his way to splendor-loving Athens. Kerkyon would not have to pressure this man to accept his challenge. His eagerness to conquer the glory of another successful labor meant he would be quick to concur. Indeed, this time Kerkyon had met his match, a descendant of equally deific lineage, with his own style of wrestling that relied on skill rather than raw strength. As they engaged in this bout to the death, Kerkyon prioritized taking his foe to the ground. Doing so would allow him to regain control and apply one of his many chokeholds, but it was nigh impossible. The youth was incredibly agile and could quickly shift his weight and recover standing from almost any takedown maneuver. Even Kerkyon's signature leg sweep, Ignion Apheresis, was ineffective. Kerkyon was becoming increasingly impatient, causing him to resort to drastically aggressive and careless actions to take his opponent to the ground. Through an attempt to set up a one-armed shoulder throw, he has exposed his back, where his foe would establish an unshakable grip. In a display of flawless execution, the mysterious wanderer steps to Kerkyon's side and uses his hips to lift him off the ground in a twisting and arcing motion. In this brief moment, vulnerable to his opponent's will, Kerkyon experienced the helplessness that so many others suffered under his powerful grasp. A realization abruptly terminated when his head crashed onto the ground he so desperately tried to reach. The stranger could now claim all Kerkyon once held. The kingship of Eleusis and even his wrestling school promised to anyone who could defeat him in single combat. But this youth needed neither, for he was Theseus, the true heir to the kingdom of Athens.
Once again, I must thank Sifis Minas for his epic narration. Make sure to check his links in the description. Also, show the channel some love on Patreon so we can improve the quality of our videos and continue making content. Now, there are many similarities between this myth and the one with Heracles and Anteos. How are they similar? Both include a murderous king roaming his kingdom and challenging any strangers to a wrestling bout. Both villains are groundwork specialists with an innovative wrestling style. Both slay every foe they face. Of course, there are some glaring disparities between the two stories. This tale is a bit more realistic than the one involving Heracles. Kerkyon, like Anteos, is also the son of a god, but similar to the demigods of the Homeric epics, his lineage does not give him any superhuman powers. Kerkyon was also not a one-dimensional fighter that would have to resort solely to guard pulling to defeat his enemies, nor did he need magical powers supplied to him by his supernatural bloodline. He was as skillful standing as he was on his back. In addition, the fight never went to the ground, most likely because it would be unrealistic to have Kerkyon lose if it did. Instead, Theseus uses a legitimate counter to an opponent with superior groundwork. Stay standing and go for the slam. Another clue that promotes the realism of this myth is Kerkyon's palestra. In fact, Pausanias, who lived in the 2nd century CE, so during the Roman times, informs us that even to his day, the palestra of Kerkyon existed under its original name. Pausanias also states that unlike Heracles, who used brute strength to conquer his foes, Theseus would match them through his skill. For Theseus was first to discover the art of wrestling, and through him afterward was established the teaching of the art. Before him, men used only size and strength of body. On the other hand, Scholia Platonica credits Kerkyon for first incorporating the use of legs for takedowns and groundwork. Another interesting factor about Kerkyon is that according to a fragment of Aeschylus, he wore ear protection when wrestling, probably to avoid suffering from cauliflower ears. Now, this may be an anachronism, or it could mean that Kerkyon was not the first to practice groundwork. But, unlike standing wrestling or striking, groundwork's foundations were not attributed to any hero or single heroic deed. As we see so far, it's more of a villainous trait than a valorous skill that would lead the heroes to victory. Of course, one can argue that Heracles used a chokehold to defeat the Nemean lion, which is where the creation of Pankration is attributed, but that was against a beast rather than another human being. That being said, it's not all bad for groundwork as an art in the ancient Greek texts. There was a man, an uncontestedly historical figure, that was not only praised for his groundwork, but had his name etched into the eons by one of the greatest poets the world has ever known.